What's going on, everyone? GoodMicWork Commentaries back at you with episode 527. Happy New Year to one and all. This is my first regular podcast episode of 2019. It's been a pretty crazy past couple of weeks with the holidays. The last 2 weeks of Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live have all been taped shows. And due to the insanity of the holidays and how busy I was, I pretty much missed all of those shows. Aside from reading the results and catching a couple of clips on YouTube, I am way behind on everything WWE related. So we got a lot of catching up to do in this episode and a lot to get into. So first of all, before I go any further, though, I do want to wish everybody a very, very happy new year. And I hope everyone had a great and wonderful holiday season. Thank you to everyone that, extended well wishes to me during the holiday time, whether it be on YouTube or Twitter or wherever. I very, very much appreciate it. And even though I haven't been up here in a few weeks for a regular podcast episode, I have been up here for a couple of live streams. I was back this past Monday for the first time in 2 weeks, live reacting to Monday Night Raw. So we're back on track with that. Had to take the previous 2 weeks off because they fell on New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve, and I was busy. So the holidays really put a dent in a lot of my content. And of course, I did come up and do my live year-end Q&A, a live episode 526 on December 30th, a couple of Sundays ago as well. So I have been up on YouTube, but it has not been a regular schedule. It's been a little bit all over the place. And I, for one, am happy that it's a new year, and I'm happy to have things back to normal here on the channel. And I've got a lot of big things planned this year, and I'm hoping this year will be the year of the mic work. We really want to try to get this channel to grow as much as possible in 2019. 2018 was a great year. I mean, I took on a lot of subscribers. We are just scratching the surface of 25,000 on the YouTube channel, so that's pretty good. I would like to get to 40, essentially by the end of this year. You would think, right? So if you have not yet subscribed to me, or you are a new listener, please click that subscribe button. You won't be disappointed. Also, give this video a like. You guys are always really cool about that. Let's try to get these likes up to at least 300. Try to start off the new year on a positive note. And aside from these podcasts, the one place where you can go to hear my opinions pretty much daily is Twitter. Give me a follow over on Twitter. A lot of times I'm not able to come up and discuss a subject right as it happens or right as it breaks, especially big news stories. So if you want my immediate thoughts, Twitter is the place to go for that. Like I said, this is going to be a loaded podcast. We have so much to get into here. After I discuss my plans for this month and 2019, I'm going to start off with non-WWE news. We're going to get into Wrestle Kingdom, discuss a few of the results of that show and all of the title changes that we saw and what the future of a lot of these talents might be. I'm also going to discuss in detail the All Elite Wrestling Rally that was held on Tuesday in Jacksonville, Florida. Very interesting event, and a lot of big news came out of that event, and I watched the whole thing on YouTube. So we'll discuss all of the big news from that event, and then we will jump into our WWE discussion, talking about this past week's Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live, and I'll run through the entire Royal Rumble card, which, for the most part, it looks to be set. I can't see too many more matches being added to this thing, maybe 1, 2 at the most, but for the most part, the Royal Rumble card is set, and we've got a lot to talk about and a lot to discuss because we are now on the road to WrestleMania. So, yeah, we better get cracking here then. Real quick, like I said, I just want to mention a couple of programming notes for you. Number one is what I want to give to you guys this month. It's going to be a loaded month of videos. I've got a couple of Patreon donation videos in the works. I actually have 3 of those in total that I'm working on right now. The first one is going to come courtesy of Reese Jones, and he's an awesome listener. That video should be up in a week, maybe 10 days at the most. I've got it mostly done, but I've got such a busy week with other stuff. I'm trying to set aside time just to finish that thing up. And it's a really fun episode. I really liked the topic that Reese chose. I've also got another Raw review from a very historic Monday Night Raw that somebody has donated to have done, so that'll be coming in the next couple of weeks as well. And for those of you who have been keeping track of my channel this past week, I debuted kind of a new idea. It was just a test to see how it goes, and that was a watch-along. What I did is I pulled up a previous Royal Rumble match from the past and reacted to it, with the idea being that you guys can sync up your WWE network to my reaction and we can kind of watch it together. And I knew there was room to improve on it. I knew there was a couple of things I could do differently, and I kind of wanted you guys to give me advice and let me know if you like the idea, if I should continue the idea, what you think I could do differently, and all of you had great things to say about it. So this looks like it's something that's going to be really fun to do because they're really not that hard to produce. and I've already made some adjustments for my next watch along, and for the month of January, I want to do just Royal Rumble, not the whole pay-per-view, just the Royal Rumble matches themselves. Like I said, my first one was Royal Rumble 1992. I'll put a link right up there in the cards for you. And a couple of dozen of you, at least in the comments, all said that you wanted me to react to the Royal Rumble match 2001. So I'm going to do that one this week and try to get that up to the channel as well in the next week or so. And for that one, I'm going to change things up, and I'm actually going to put a timer in the corner. That way you can sync up your WWE network with my timer, and it'll be much easier to follow along. So the watch-alongs might start happening a lot more often now. I will try to do them whenever I can. I've changed up the lighting and tweaked some stuff up, and I think they're going to be really fun and really interesting videos to do. So that's going to be something new that I'm going to try to incorporate into the channel as much as I can in 2019. But hopefully during this month of January, not only can I do Royal Rumble 2001, but maybe I can squeeze one more in before we get to the Royal Rumble on the 27th. That's my immediate goal. But like I said, a couple of Patreon videos, a couple more watch-alongs, regular podcasts, and I will be up here live reacting to the Royal Rumble on the 27th. So I'll do a live reaction to that on YouTube. I'm also going to plan on taking the Saturday off prior to the Royal Rumble to watch NXT TakeOver, and I'll probably come up and do some sort of a live review on that. So between now and WrestleMania, there's going to be a ton of shit going on this channel, and my primary goal for 2019 is to have the biggest year of growth ever. And, if I'm really shooting high, if I'm really aiming high, I would like to double in size. If I could go from 25,000 to 50,000 by the end of the year, I would be extremely grateful. But if we can't quite meet that goal, maybe just under it would be really nice. And I'm looking forward to big things on the channel. So thank you once again to everyone out there for your continued support. So many of you are so great. I do these Monday Night Raw streams every Monday, and it's the same 200 or 300 of you. A lot of you are so loyal and so awesome, and it's an honor to have you guys as listeners. Another kind of housekeeping tip I did for the channel is that I finally, after all of these years, I've been meaning to do this for so long, but I'm finally starting to update my description. And this is something that's long overdue. I've really beefed up the description below, added all the links that you need to have. I put a ton of videos down there, some of my more current work or better work or really good examples of what I do. All that shit is now in the description. So please just scroll down, take a look at it, and I'm probably going to be adding to it constantly. So this is going to be the description that's going to go in every video from now on. I only had my basic links and all of my descriptions before, and I don't know why I was so stupid to take this long to do something a little bit more professional down there. So like I said, I'll be adding to it a lot as well. Probably going to start including some shout outs from Patreon backers and things like that down there. So there will be more to come. But from here on out, anytime you click on any of my videos, please check the description because it's going to be loaded with goodies. Moving on now to the meat and potatoes of this episode. Like I said, we're going to begin with non-WWE stuff. We had Wrestle Kingdom take place last week, and I did stay up late and watch that show. I did join in a little bit late, but the only match I really missed that I was super interested in was the opener of Will Ospreay and Kota Ibushi, which I did wind up catching that match after the fact, and that was fucking incredible. Absolutely amazing opener. But there was probably only 5 matches on this card that I kind of had penciled in as the ones that I cared the most about. That was Naito and Jericho, Ospreay and Ibushi, Jay White and Okada, Tanahashi and Omega, and Juice Robinson and Cody to a degree as well. But since I don't watch that much Japanese wrestling, it's hard for me to get really emotionally invested in some of those other like tag team matches and stuff. So I really only had 5 matches in mind that I really wanted to see. And it was amazing. I've now been a subscriber to New Japan World for a little bit over a year, and it's been a great investment. I hardly ever utilize it. I tune into some of the big pay-per-views. I've watched the last couple of Wrestle Kingdoms, and I watched the Dominion show, and I've caught, a lot of big shows on the network, but I don't use it to its full potential. But I'm really glad that it's there, and I enjoy 2 to 4 times a year staying up all night, staying up until 5:30 in the morning, because for me on the West Coast, the show starts at like midnight for me, so that's reasonable. I can easily stay up all night and watch that, so it's kind of nice just to, turn all the lights out in my house and stay up from midnight till 5:30 in the morning, watching just a kick-ass wrestling show. After I've been smelling all these farts out of the WWE's ass, it's nice to get a breath of fresh air there, from a different company that provides really, really good, fun, intriguing wrestling. And I wish my life was not so hectic. I would love to watch more Japanese wrestling if I could, but I can barely keep track of NXT. So New Japan is lucky they get me as often as I do because I just suck at keeping track of wrestling. But had a really good time watching Wrestle Kingdom. Like I said, a lot of news coming out of that show as well because of how many title changes we had. How many do we have? 33 titles changed hands? Or something ridiculous. I know I'm exaggerating there, but everybody was dropping their belts. Jericho dropped the IC title to Naito in a crazy, grueling, insane match that I loved. Cody Rhodes dropped the U.S. title to Juice Robinson, and Kenny Omega dropped the world title to Tanahashi in the main event, and I loved that match. That might have been my favorite match on the card. It's actually hard. It's impossible to vote against Ospreay and Ibushi, but I did enjoy Omega and Tanahashi, and I liked to see Tanahashi win that title again for the umpteenth time. I was happy for him. It was a great match with Omega. The rumors of Kenny Omega leaving New Japan were confirmed in the subsequent days. He has made it official and announced that he is leaving the promotion, and a lot of people are talking about Kenny Omega jumping over to the WWE. There have been some rumors of WWE offering him a huge deal, and I'm going to talk about All Elite here in a minute, but WWE knows that Omega has got some options here. For the first time ever, there could actually be bidding wars take place. You've got 3 companies with money vying over the biggest free agent out there. New Japan, All Elite Wrestling, and WWE can all afford him, and it just depends on where he wants to go. And right now, the signs are pointing to him going to WWE. He wasn't at the All Elite rally, which I'll talk about here in a minute. I don't know if he would have been forbidden to go. I don't think that his New Japan contract would prevent him from doing something like that, but it might. I don't know what the hell's going on there. So he wasn't at the rally, which kind of adds to the speculation that maybe he is going to WWE, or he might just be trying to get the best deal possible. Maybe he truly doesn't know where he's going to go. If I had to guess, I would say that he's made his mind up. He's just waiting to announce it. And, I would love to see him in WWE, provided a couple of things. There's a couple of big ifs here. Number one, if Kenny Omega goes to WWE, I'm fine with it, provided that WWE treats Omega like they treated AJ Styles. If they do that, Kenny Omega will be fine. But if they don't, he runs the risk of turning into Dolph Ziggler as well. But what I think is different now is that with All Elite Wrestling launching officially, and they've got a lot of money behind them, Omega is not going to go to the WWE to be fucked over. He doesn't need WWE. WWE wants to take him to maybe try to prevent one of these other companies from getting the hottest free agent out there. So Omega, you would think, nowadays with everything going on, if a guy like Omega is going to come in, he's going to have to be promised some things. And I know that creative control is something WWE would never offer, and promises of pushes and title belts are also something that WWE generally doesn't offer. All they offer is an opportunity, quote unquote. But with Omega, if I was in his shoes, I would say, look, assholes, I'm not stepping foot in the doors of this fucking company unless you promise to not treat me like a pile of donkey shit. Right now, Vince, put it on the dotted line. I, Vince McMahon, will not treat Kenny Omega like a pile of donkey shit. I want that in writing, because Kenny Omega does not need that shit. He does not need to fall victim to those politics and that ass-backwards way of life in the WWE when he can be a huge star and be the centerpiece of any promotion that he goes to. So WWE, if they bring Kenny Omega in, number one, the money's going to have to be off the fucking hook. And number two, they're going to have to promise him a direct path to the main roster, bypassing NXT, and he's going to work with top talent right out of the gate. You don't have to tell him exactly when he's going to win a world title or anything like that, because WWE doesn't even know what they're doing tomorrow. So for them to promise a world title at a specific time to a talent seems damn near impossible. But they should at least say you're going to be a top tier talent and we'll take it from there. And if the money is better than anything that he's ever made, and he's in his late 30s, and it's time for him to finally graduate to the WWE where the money can really come in, then that might be a decision he's got to make just for the sake of himself, the sake of his family. And he's not going to sign any longer than a 3-year deal there. So if he goes there for 3 years and it sucks, he's out the door and he'll be right back to Japan or wherever the fuck in 3 years' time. So I'm certainly, as a fan, not going to tell Kenny Omega what to do. I was asking you guys on Twitter if you think Kenny Omega should go to the WWE or do you want to see him in the WWE? And some people were like, fuck yeah, his matches will be amazing. And some people were like, hell no, WWE will ruin him. Well, that's what I'm talking about. I think Kenny Omega is in too good a position to be ruined. I don't think he's going to come into the WWE and they're going to job him out. That ain't going to happen because if he comes to WWE, WWE is going to be paying him a lot of money. There have been a few unconfirmed figures out there that might range in the $2 to $3 million a year range. And if they're throwing that kind of cash at him, they are not going to job him out or turn him into Zack Ryder. That's a waste of fucking money and that's a waste on your investment. So I think Omega is in a good position to where if he comes to WWE, I personally believe, now I could be wrong, but I personally believe that if he goes to WWE, he will be treated well. A lot of fans think that if he comes into the company in February, he should have a title match at WrestleMania and all that shit. I'm not like that. It's baby steps with me. Everybody wants to rush everything. The wrestling fans have absolutely no patience whatsoever. And if Omega comes in, I mean, the people that were kind of pitching ideas for Omega coming into the WWE, he could appear in the Royal Rumble and he could face Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. I'm like, face Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania? Come on. I'm all for acknowledging the greatness of a star and giving him title matches, but you're not going to come into the company and then 8 weeks later you're wrestling Brock Lesnar for the title at WrestleMania. Does nobody out there think that that's even the slightest bit of a slap in the face to any other talent on their roster that's been there? Somebody like Seth Rollins that we all want to see curb stomp the beast and win the title at WrestleMania. Nobody thinks that's a slight on any of those guys. People really want to see Omega rise that fast. You know, I think Omega could come in prior to WrestleMania and have a match like AJ Styles did with Jericho a few years ago. You know, if Omega came into the WWE right before WrestleMania, give him a big match at WrestleMania, give him a big opponent, but don't put him in title matches. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. And plus, who knows when Omega will even come into WWE if he does sign. It might be after WrestleMania. You know, WrestleMania might come and go. Omega has stated publicly that he's taking some time off or taking time away from everything, all promotions, so maybe he's going to rest up his bones. I don't know how the New Japan contracts work. I don't know if there's no compete clauses or anything like that after they expire. So I'm not even sure when contractually or legally Omega could appear in WWE if he goes there. So there's still a lot to be answered there. Me, I'm kind of on the fence. I'm kind of with you guys. Part of me thinks yes, part of me thinks no. A big part of me just gets a raging erection when I think of the possibility of a Daniel Bryan and Kenny Omega match for the WWE title at SummerSlam, or an Omega versus AJ Styles match, or Omega and Balor, or anybody that he's got history from Japan with, mixing it up with them in a WWE ring, I think could be a lot of fun. There's just a ton of talent there that Omega could work with. But on the other side of that coin, you got a brand new wrestling promotion in All Elite Wrestling. Do we really want WWE flexing their muscles and showing that if they put their mind to it, they can have anybody they want? The hottest free agent in the world who's got a very close connection to Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks, and he's going to ditch them and go to WWE when All Elite Wrestling could really use him. You know, if they're able to get Omega on board with everybody else they've already got on board and he works the Double or Nothing show in May, that's going to be fucking huge shit. I think as wrestling fans, for the future of the professional wrestling industry, this is a situation where a big part of me thinks it would be better for Kenny Omega to stay out of the WWE just for wrestling. Now, for Kenny Omega himself, WWE might be where you go to really financially secure yourself for the rest of your life. So he may really not have a choice but to go there. It might just be the best thing for him and his family. But, you know, I would hate to think that WWE can just go out there and scoop up anybody they want and not leaving anything left for the other promotions. So I think for the good of the business, Omega should stay out of the WWE. But if he goes there, I'm confident that he'll be treated well because, like I said, he is a huge star anywhere else he goes. He's not going to sign on the dotted line with the WWE, you know, to be treated like Bobby Roode. It ain't going to happen. Which brings us to the big All Elite rally that took place on Tuesday in Jacksonville, the same city that SmackDown Live was taking place in. Apparently, WWE did have people monitoring the rally. They're monitoring the rally. Give me a break. WWE. What the fuck are you afraid of? But it was interesting. It was a cool rally. I watched the stream of it on YouTube. There was a few audio issues. There was some really bad sound levels here and there. When the theme music for Guys would hit, it would just be blaring loud. But, a few little technical difficulties aside, it was still a really entertaining rally, and some big news came out of it. So I'm going to kind of run through what happened. Conrad Thompson was the host along with Alex Marvez, and the first thing they did was introduce Cody Rhodes. He's the executive vice president of All Elite Wrestling. So Cody comes out there and cuts a little promo or makes a little speech and does take a couple of shots at the WWE, which I liked. He says that wrestlers will be paid well, that wins and losses do matter, and they will not force the fans or coach the fans to cheer anyone. And they're going to let everybody kind of make up their own minds, and they're pretty much going to be the anti-WWE. And then, of course, the big announcement, the sequel to All In, which we already knew was going to happen. They announced that on New Year's Eve, called Double or Nothing, but we didn't have a date or location for that event. And that was announced at the rally. It's going to be May 25th at the MGM Grand in Vegas. And I immediately thought to myself, flights from San Diego to Vegas are like less than $100. I could definitely make this trip if I plan far enough ahead. So it might be something I'm able to do. I will be in Hawaii just a few weeks prior to this. It might be hard to do 2 back-to-back trips, but Vegas is not that hard. It's only a 4 or 5 hour drive, or I could hop on a flight for $90 and get my ass to Vegas. So I'm not promising anything yet, but if any of you are planning on making the trip to Vegas, hit me up on Twitter in the DMs or something, and if enough people are interested in going, I might try to make that happen. It would be super fucking fun. And we know there's probably going to be a whole weekend of festivities going on as well. And I did inquire about going to the All In show in Chicago, but that would have been way expensive to do, and I opted not to go. But Vegas is a whole nother story. So that's really interesting. That's really exciting for All Elite Wrestling. And Double or Nothing is going to be, I guess, their inaugural show, which will be the sequel to All In from a year ago. So that'll be May 25th in Vegas. They also bring out Brandy. Brandy Rhodes is officially signed to the company, and she is the chief brand officer. So we've got the VP and the chief brand officer, husband and wife team. Cody Rhodes and Brandy are like Triple H and Steph. And then Brandy introduced Britt Baker as one of the signees. Who's Britt Baker with? Is it Adam Cole? Is that her guy? So we got a lot of crossover in All Elite and WWE here. I mean, Conrad Thompson was one of the hosts, and he has a show, or did have a show, on the WWE Network last year. So everything in wrestling, with all of the men and women involved in it now, it's all so connected. But really cool to see Britt Baker out there. I'm sure she's going to be the first of many women signed to the company. It would be cool to see Tessa Blanchard get in there and a few others. So we'll see how the women's division shapes up in All Elite Wrestling. I wouldn't mind seeing Rachel Ellering, making her way over there either. We then had Maxwell, Jacob Friedman come out, this fucking Walmart Miz with a goddamn scarf. It's Florida. I know it's January, but you're in Florida. You don't need a scarf. But he's out there cutting probably one of the douchiest promos of all time. He's a very young kid, very charismatic on the mic, and he pulls off the character well, even though he looks like a discount Miz. He insulted the shit out of Conrad, called him fat, called him turkey tits at one point. I don't think I've ever heard that before. And he was then confronted by the Jacksonville Jaguars mascot, because this rally did take place right outside the arena there. And as he's jawing with the mascot, Joey Janela attacks him from behind with a crutch. And he's now in the company as well. And I think he had Penelope Ford with him. Adam Page was out next to cut a promo, and he's going to be one of the top contenders for the All Elite Wrestling World title. And he's vowing to be the first AEW champion in history. And right after he says that, some music hits, and out comes Neville, or Pac. So that's the first huge signee of the day. Big surprise. Now, Neville was spotted in Jacksonville earlier on that day, so it wasn't like a huge surprise, but still really cool to see him there. And how about him showing up in his gear? The dude was wearing his wrestling gear with his Dragon Gate title ready to fight. Everybody else was like in business suits or, just some regular street clothes of some kind, and this guy's out there ready to get it on. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to have him involved in All Elite Wrestling. So that's a huge signee. So happy for Neville. I'm so glad that he escaped the black hole of WWE. He's one guy that, is so better off without them. And cool to see him be one of the main players in All Elite Wrestling. This is This is fun shit. Cody came out again with the Young Bucks after this, and they announced that there is going to be a second show after the Double or Nothing show, and it will be in Jacksonville, Florida. So they gave the crowd a little treat there. No date or location on that yet, so we don't know when the second show will be. We don't even know how often they're going to run shows. If this is going to try to be a weekly thing, if they're going to be streaming on the internet, if they're going to try to get a TV deal. A lot of those details probably still have yet to be worked out, and I don't know any of those details. So not sure how frequent the shows are going to be or what kind of schedule they're going to run. But their first show is Double or Nothing, and their second one will be in Jacksonville at some point, probably in the summer. And then the final big surprise of the afternoon was the appearance of Chris Jericho. Conrad, I think, is at the podium again, and then you hear the Judas song start playing, and you're like, holy shit, here comes Jericho, another guy that was kind of rumored to be involved and to be signing with All Elite, and he did drop his title at Wrestle Kingdom as well, so this wasn't a huge surprise, but still, I marked out to see it. And I'm happy that Jericho was there. He got on the mic, talked about how he likes to try different things, that he's an outlaw and a maverick and yada, 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 made his presence known, and he is a big, huge name involved with All Elite Wrestling. So I can't be happier for these guys. This is big. When you look at who they have so far on the roster right now, it's just a handful of names, but you got names like Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks, Chris Jericho, Hangman Page, Kazarian, Daniels, and Scorpio. And we have MJF, of course, Joey Janela, Penelope Ford, Britt Baker, Neville, a.k.a. Pac, and another name, Billy Gunn, has been brought on as a producer. So he'll be an agent or a producer or something behind the scenes. So they're starting to formulate a pretty good team here. And it's well backed because the family, the Khan family that owns the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's the father and son that are involved in this, but the son is a longtime wrestling fan apparently. And this family is the primary investors in this whole thing. So when people have asked me throughout the years, hey, GoodMicWork, do you think another wrestling promotion could ever come along to challenge WWE or anything like that? My answer is always no, but I've always had an asterisk next to that no. And that is if you find someone with a lot of money to spend that doesn't mind spending it, because there's no way to catch the WWE monster. They're too big. You're going to need a billionaire or someone close to that. You know, and the only types of people really that would be interested in wrestling that have that type of money would be sports team owners. And here they found a family that really seems committed to this 100%. And this is good for the wrestling business. Now, one thing I will say is WWE ain't going anywhere, y'all. I couldn't believe how many tweets I was getting on Tuesday during this rally about, oh, Vince McMahon is probably pissed at Jericho. I don't think Vince cares. You know, I really don't think that he does. You know, maybe he wished he could get Jericho back in. Maybe he's, you know, not happy that he signed with him, but Vince isn't worried, believe me. And WWE isn't worried about All Elite Wrestling either. You know, WWE isn't going anywhere. They are here to stay. And NXT arguably is better than any wrestling out there. So there's no way that anybody is going to take down the WWE monster. But that's all people were talking about is how screwed the WWE is. And I was kind of laughing at that because I'm like, hello, is nobody thinking about TNA? Is nobody realizing how royally fucked Impact is going to be now? Because this is going to be the new kid in town. This is the new kid on the block. This is where everybody wants to go. Seems like they have their shit together. Granted, they haven't started yet. You know, they've only held a rally, but so far it feels like it's just a little bit more together. TNA has always been such a convoluted mess, you know, and they're constantly switching ownerships and TV networks and bookers and people in charge and Dixie Carter and Jeff Jarrett and all this. You know, All Elite Wrestling, I'm hoping, will not turn into what TNA was. You know, you got two wrestlers with blonde hair trying to start the promotion, Cody Rhodes and Jeff Jarrett. There are some similarities there, but I think and I hope that All Elite Wrestling will learn from the mistakes of a company like TNA and make better decisions than they did and never bring in Hogan and Bischoff to run your company or anything like that. There's also some big names out there. Bischoff is a name that could have some input in All Elite Wrestling. Another guy is Goldberg. His name has been tossed around, so I definitely think there's some room for some big-time stars in there just to give the company a rub, but you don't need to have your company overrun with them. And anytime a WWE guy leaves, you don't have to sign him and put him in title matches the very next day. I don't want to see All Elite Wrestling do that. I think there are plenty of people in WWE that when their contracts are up, they can leave the company and go to All Elite Wrestling. There's plenty of guys there that would be great in All Elite Wrestling, but they all wouldn't be great there. And some of the mistakes I remember TNA making back in the day is they didn't care who you were. If you had any affiliation at all to WWE and you left, you were going to TNA. They wanted you there so they could flaunt you on TV. All Elite Wrestling doesn't need to do that. They already have the support of the fans. They don't need to prostitute themselves like that. They're better than that. So I'm hoping that All Elite learns from the mistakes of Impact. But when you look at where Impact is right now in the wrestling landscape, they're the ones that are going to be negatively affected by this, because who the fuck wants to go to TNA? I think any wrestler out there that's not with WWE right now, or working the independents, their goal is probably to get to All Elite Wrestling before getting to Impact. And I think Impact is going to suffer. Ring of Honor might even take a hit. And I think All Elite Wrestling is really going to be competing with those guys initially, to start worrying about WWE being affected by these guys. That's a ways off. It's some of the smaller promotions, I think, that are going to start noticing things first. So I, for one, cannot wish these guys any more luck in the world. I really want All Elite Wrestling to be a big deal. And this is our chance. Maybe every 10 or 20 years we'll get an opportunity to have an upstart company come along and they either succeed or they fail. So let's really keep our fingers crossed that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we've got a serious competitor to WWE. Good luck to everyone involved there. Now we'll move on to WWE stuff. I'm going to briefly mention what took place this past week on Monday Night Raw, then we'll get into SmackDown Live, and then I'll run through the Royal Rumble card, and we'll discuss, a few storylines, especially with the women, as we go through here. So let's start with Raw this past Monday. I was up here, like I said, live streaming, first stream of the year for Monday Night Raw, and it was fun because we had a lot going on the show. John Cena was advertised for the show, Hulk Hogan was advertised for the show, and Brock Lesnar was advertised for the show. So after 2 weeks of taped Raws, they're pulling out all the stops for 2019, and I think this was really the first live Raw since the McMahons announced all of their bullshit changes a couple of weeks ago. So I gotta be honest, we didn't see that many changes. The show still felt the same. We had John Cena coming out first. The show really opened up with a backstage brawl between Seth Rollins and Lashley, and then they brawled all the way out to the stage and brawled off camera, and that's when John Cena came out. And he cut his promo. He's out there looking ridiculous with that haircut. It cracks me up to see him like that. I did see his promo and mixed tag match with Becky Lynch on SmackDown the week before. That was pretty good stuff. Really fun to see Becky Lynch calling out Cena like that and making the fans wonder if we might get an intergender match between the two at WrestleMania or something, which I don't think will happen, but pretty funny that people seemed into that idea. But Cena was out on Raw now to declare his entry into the Royal Rumble. So no big surprise there. We figured that John Cena would be in, and he's then interrupted by Drew McIntyre, who comes out and cuts a promo on him. He's eventually joined by a whole bunch of people. Rollins and Lashley show back up brawling. We got Dean Ambrose coming out there. We got Finn Balor coming out there. They're all brawling. They go to a commercial, and as predicted during the live stream, during commercial, we were saying to ourselves, we're going to come back and see a six-man match in progress, and that's exactly what happened. It was John Cena, Balor, and Seth versus Lashley, Drew, and Dean Ambrose. Rollins got the victory there, curb stomping and pinning Dean Ambrose, and then Rollins would aggressively confront Triple H backstage demanding an Intercontinental title match, and Triple H gives it to him, and he makes it a Falls Count Anywhere match. So that's going to be your main event, Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose for the Intercontinental title, Falls Count Anywhere. And we had a feeling how this one was going to end. I wasn't expecting Seth Rollins to regain the Intercontinental title. I'm still holding out hope that he wins the Royal Rumble and goes on to face Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, but Brock might have another challenger on his hands in the form of Lashley, because now Lashley's working with Rollins. Lashley's being really aggressive too and getting a little bit of traction as a heel, not much. But I'm worried that WWE is going to start pushing him, and I really don't want that. I'd rather see Seth. But because the two of them kind of have this issue, the writing was on the wall there. You had a feeling that Lashley would interrupt in the IC title match, and that's what happened. He attacked Seth Rollins, and Dean Ambrose was able to defeat him with the help from Lashley, and that should be the end, I would think, of the Seth Rollins-Dean Ambrose feud, at least for the time being. I think Seth is now going to start working with Lashley. I don't think there's any room for these guys to have a one-on-one match unless they squeeze them into the Rumble somehow, one-on-one, but then they also are entrants in the Rumble. Maybe they could do that. The next month is the Elimination Chamber, correct? So probably no room for a one-on-one match there. So I certainly don't think that they're saving this for WrestleMania. This might be a time-killing program for Seth on his road to WrestleMania. And maybe whatever Seth and Lashley do, they can blow it off just on Raw somewhere. But there's also the possibility that maybe Seth is no longer considered for the Royal Rumble or to face Brock at WrestleMania. So I don't really know what to make of this. I just, if it was up to me, Seth is still the guy of everybody on the roster that I would want to see face Brock Lesnar, at least right now. Drew McIntyre is on that list as well. Maybe there's some sort of a three-way. Maybe Brock Lesnar is not even champion. I'm looking way ahead. He does have a title match with Braun Strowman at the Royal Rumble, but I'm expecting him to stay champion. So if he is, Seth is kind of the guy I want. So between now and then, I'm not sure what they have planned for Seth Rollins. What do you guys think? What do you think they're going to do with Seth in his feud with Lashley? What is he going to do at the Royal Rumble? And ultimately, what will his plans be at WrestleMania? If you disagree with me and you don't think he's going to face Brock Lesnar, then what is he going to do? And speaking of Brock Lesnar, he was on the show, but the segment with him and Braun Strowman was terrible. Terrible, man. Braun Strowman returned after his elbow surgery, and he looked great. And he gets in the ring and he starts cutting a promo, and then Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar appear on the Titantron backstage, and they're kind of making fun of him. And Brock just does not seem to be interested in even going out there, and Braun Strowman is saying that he's a coward, and it was an interesting kind of like camera shot that they were using. Braun, instead of... Normally, it's like an over-the-shoulder shot from behind the guy when he's looking at his opponent on the Titantron, but they did a split screen here, and they had Brock and Heyman on the left, and they had Braun on the right, but instead of Braun looking up at the Tron, he was looking directly into the camera. And I think it was throwing him off because he was kind of botchy in his promo. I don't think he was comfortable doing it. I wasn't comfortable with him staring at me like that. I felt like he was undressing me with his eyes. I don't blame him, but it still made me feel very uncomfortable. And I just didn't like the whole feel of the thing. But Braun Strowman is demanding that Brock come out there and face him. And finally, Brock kind of agrees. He goes, all right, Paul, let's go see what he wants. And his music hits. He comes out to the ring, and Braun, who apparently is angry and wants to tear Brock apart, is standing in the middle of the ring while Brock is slowly walking around the perimeter of the ring. Braun Strowman, as angry as he is, never once tried to jump out and get him, never tried to attack him, just sat there like an idiot as Brock stalked him, and then Brock wound up just walking away. So if Braun Strowman really wanted to get his hands on Brock, he could have. All he had to do was jump out of the ring and grab him, and he never did. So I thought it made Braun look like a chump. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of times I disagree with the fans when they say, oh, this wrestler was buried and this guy's mystique is lost and all that shit. They're so full of shit 9 times out of 10 with that stuff. This is one occasion where they're right. You guys remember a year ago, I was literally jacking off to Braun Strowman. I loved him. And here we are 1 year later, and I literally do not give a shit about the guy at all. And that's WWE's fault. That's all on them, because this guy could have been great. This guy could have been world champion 8 months ago when he was so hot, and he could have just torn through. It would have been so much better than Brock Lesnar holding that belt hostage, only for Roman to beat him at SummerSlam, and then of course, that all shot him in the foot when Roman got sick. Because Braun Strowman, they did the heel turn. They basically sacrificed the character of Braun Strowman for Roman Reigns, and then Roman Reigns got sick. And then Braun went on to face Brock Lesnar and got beat again, so he's lost twice now to him. And now he's got a match at the Royal Rumble with Brock Lesnar, and I'm sorry, I would much rather see Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania as world champion than Braun Strowman, because I think Brock dropping the belt at Mania is much more meaningful than Braun dropping the title at Mania. When Roman Reigns got sick, WWE basically just pushed the reset button and said, okay, we're going to have somebody else beat Brock Lesnar at a big show to be the new Universal Champion. To me, that's the way it has to go. So Brock Lesnar facing Braun Strowman in a few weeks at the Royal Rumble. As much as I love Braun Strowman and as much as I've loved him all year long, I just don't give a shit about him anymore, and I want to see Brock Lesnar beat him. And I really hope that if Brock Lesnar retains the title at the Royal Rumble, the fans won't be flipping out, because if they can just wait like 8 more weeks, it's all going to be over. I'm very confident that Brock will be dropping the belt this year. A lot of people say, well, what if he retains and he stays champion going into SummerSlam like he did last year or whatever? That's, I ain't gonna lie, that's a possibility, but I just don't see it happening. It's just like Kenny Omega. Provided they treat him like AJ Styles, I'm all for him coming in. It's just like Becky Lynch. Provided she has a big match or a big moment or a title victory at WrestleMania, I don't really give a shit what they do where they're right now. And the same goes for Brock Lesnar. Provided that he drops that fucking belt at WrestleMania, as long as that's the plan and as long as that's the end result, I don't care how many matches he wins prior to that. As long as he loses, I'm a happy guy. So I think a Brock title loss at Mania is more important than a Braun title loss or a Braun title defense at WrestleMania, and that's what I hope we see. It is also possible that Braun Strowman stays in the title picture. Maybe we get a 4-way or a 3-way. Maybe we get Brock, Braun, and McIntyre. Maybe we get Brock, Braun, McIntyre, and Seth in a fatal 4-way. They might do something like that. I hope not. I think Brock needs to lose clean just to help make somebody else. I don't want to see Brock drop it in a triple threat. I don't think it's fair that Roman Reigns is the only guy out there allowed to beat him clean. I think it needs to be somebody else. One-on-one, Brock gets beat. And speaking of title matches at the Royal Rumble and at WrestleMania, we've got the women's title match announced, the Raw women's title match, that is, announced for the Royal Rumble. It's going to be Ronda Rousey defending against Sasha Banks. That's kind of cool. Now, I'm not expecting Sasha to win, but I like the match. It's going to be fun. It's a new opponent for Ronda, and I think it's one of her better opponents. I mean, think of who she's faced so far. Nikki Bella, Alexa Bliss, Nia Jax, not exactly the greatest workers. You know, Charlotte, of course, is phenomenal, but other than that, she hasn't had really great opponents. You know, and she worked with Stephanie at WrestleMania, so it's about time she's actually in there with a fucking wrestler, and she's going to take on Sasha Banks, and I think that match can be a lot of fun, especially the way Ronda works and the way she sells. She's going to make Sasha look like $1 million out there. Mark my words. Now, unfortunately, I think Sasha Banks is just a really strong, solid competitor for Ronda to defeat. If I had to guess, I don't see her dropping the belt here. I don't see Becky Lynch screwing her over or anything like that. I think the money, much like Brock Lesnar, I think the money is having Ronda Rousey go into WrestleMania as champion. I think that's where the dollars are. WWE probably wants Ronda and Brock both going into that show as champion. And they might wind up both losing, which would be really interesting. But that whole match with Sasha and Ronda was set up on Alexa Bliss's new talk show. I think it's Moment of Bliss. So is that what it's called? Moment of Bliss? And my God, did she look gorgeous. I mean, Alexa Bliss is super hot. We know that. But I don't know. There was something about her on Monday that was, give me a little tingly. Easy. Big fella. But yeah, Alexa Bliss looked amazing. But she was out there interviewing Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey was the guest. A little bit different setup for this talk show. It was like 2 chairs up on the stage. So this was not done in the ring. And I don't know what Alexa Bliss's status is. I thought that she was cleared to return to the ring. So I don't know if they're necessarily giving her this in place of wrestling, but they might be wanting to just capitalize on her ability on the mic. And wrestling has never had a shortage of talk shows. There's been many dating all the way back to the 1980s. So I'm not necessarily against this idea, provided it doesn't suck. But Ronda Rousey is the one that actually brings up Sasha Banks. She says, there's only one person that I want to defend the title against, someone who's a good wrestler and carries herself with pride and dignity, and just showering all of these compliments. And Alexa Bliss is thinking that she's talking about her. And then Ronda Rousey says Sasha Banks. And Alexa Bliss is like, no, that's bullshit. And then Nia Jax waddles out there to say, no, you are not going to face Sasha Banks. You're going to face me. Nia Jax being out there made no sense. Ronda Rousey tapped her out like a bitch at TLC. Now all of a sudden thinks she's the number 1 contender. And that's when Sasha Banks comes out and says, hey, bitch, why don't we go in the ring right now and face each other? And the winner gets Ronda Rousey at the Royal Rumble. And Sasha Power walks to the ring. They go to a commercial. We come back, and the match is happening. Sasha Banks versus Nia Jax. Winner faces Ronda at the Rumble. And Sasha picks up the victory, taps out Nia Jax. So the burial of Nia Jax continues. I'm the only one that's been mentioning the burial. All the fans that were so up in arms about the face smash and she needs to be sent back to developmental, and the only punishment acceptable to the wrestling fans when all of that was going on, and I mentioned this in every podcast during that time, the only thing that was acceptable to them was for her to be sent back down to NXT. In their mind, that's the only thing WWE could do. Where I was saying they can punish her in other ways. They can have her work out in the ring during Monday Night Raws or house shows, because there is a fucking ring there. And there are some coaches and trainers there in the backstage area, believe it or not. If Nia Jax needs some more work, that doesn't necessarily have to be done in NXT. All she's got to do is work out a little bit before the shows with the agents, or take a couple of trips down to the Performance Center during the week in between TV and work on your craft. It's that fucking simple. And in the meantime, you know, if WWE needs to punish her or discipline her at all for her unsafe work or anything else that she's been doing, she opened up her mouth and was bitching about something on Twitter last week about WWE not including her in some list of important women or whatever the fuck. So maybe they're sick and tired of her too. And she's been doing nothing but jobs, you know, ever since after Survivor Series. You know, she got owned by Ronda Rousey at TLC. She got punched in the face and knocked clean out backstage by Becky Lynch after that match. Now she's tapping out to Sasha Banks on Raw. And her being a contender for the world title is over. She's not going to get any title shots, at least between now and WrestleMania, aside from maybe a random one on Monday Night Raw one week, if Ronda is feeling saucy and puts the belt up on the line. Aside from that, you know, Nia Jax is completely out of the picture. And I thought after she caved in Becky's face and all of the heat she got for that, there was money in a Becky Lynch-Nia Jax match. But the WWE went in the other direction. They don't seem to have any plans to do Becky Lynch versus Nia Jax at all, and they've completely just brushed Nia Jax aside. If that was anybody else, the fans would be saying that they buried her and they did not capitalize on a big money match. But since it's Nia Jax and the fans hate her, nobody gives a shit. So anyway, that's kind of my little twist on the Nia Jax situation. It seems like she's being jobbed out right before our very eyes. Aside from that, there was really nothing that notable or even worth mentioning on Monday Night Raw, except for Hulk Hogan's appearance to tribute Mean Gene Okerlund. And Hogan was pre-advertised. WWE did announce that he was going to be appearing on Raw to tribute Mean Gene. We lost Mean Gene last week. Mean Gene was the face and the voice of wrestling for a long time, and he's just a huge part of my young life. And that was a tough one. I did a small little one-off video, a tribute commentary, shared some memories, and talked about the career of Mean Gene Okerlund. The link to that is right up in the top right-hand corner if you want to check that out, if you did not see it last week. But all of my thoughts and memories and comments about Mean Gene Okerlund and his death can be found right there in that one-off episode. But on Raw, they chose to tribute Mean Gene, and they said that Hogan was going to come out there and pay tribute to him. And it got a little controversial on social media, on Twitter. Some fans weren't happy that Hogan was showing up there, and a lot of people were saying the same thing. Oh, WWE, you're just bringing Hogan in to tribute Mean Gene because you know he's not going to get booed. The fans aren't going to shit on Mean Gene. And I understand the urge to want to think that. But regardless of the controversy surrounding Hulk Hogan, this is something that he would be asked to come in and do, whether he had heat or not. You know, I don't think this was about getting him on TV in a situation where he wasn't booed. I think this was about tributing Mean Gene. Now, I'm all for acknowledging WWE's hypocritical ways. I'm uncomfortable with Hulk Hogan being back in the company too, you know, but as far as this Mean Gene situation goes, I was choosing to pick my battles on this one, and I was not going to fly off the rails about Hogan appearing on Raw. If you want to trash and rake the WWE over the coals for Hogan's appearance at Crown Jewel or anything he does in the future, I say have at it, go for it. But as far as the Mean Gene tribute, leave him alone. Because, you know, I talked about this on the stream. I use the analogy of like going to a funeral. Maybe somebody who's close to you, somebody that you love has passed away and you're going to the funeral. There might be other people there at the funeral that you personally don't like or you have issues with for some reason. But those people or that person might be very important or close to the person that's dead. You know, they would want them there kind of thing. So when it came to Mean Gene, you know, you couldn't have a Hulk Hogan promo without Mean Gene. For many, many years in professional wrestling, they were peanut butter and jelly. Mean Gene really helped along the career of Hulk Hogan. He was a really big player in the entire Hulk Hogan presentation. Mean Gene knew how to interview him, knew what to say to him, knew how to get him over. Mean Gene was perfect for Hulk Hogan. And they became famous together. They were a famous duo. And you know that if Mean Gene was going to pass away, he would expect Hulk Hogan to come out there and tribute him in some way. So you can have all the issues with Hulk Hogan that you want. He ain't my favorite guy either, so I'm right there with you. But as far as this particular isolated situation, I am not upset in any way that Hogan was out there on Raw, because that's what Mean Gene would have wanted. And it was a pretty nice little tribute by Hogan. He kind of rambled at first. They showed a very beautiful video package on the career of Mean Gene. Really well done. They did a 10-bell salute. And then, like I said, Hogan was rambling in his promo a little bit, but it got really good at the end when he started name dropping a whole bunch of legends in the sky. He even mentioned a tag team match taking place with Ultimate Warrior and Randy Savage taking on Mr. Perfect and Roddy Piper, with Andre the Giant as the special guest referee, and Mean Gene is going to interview the winner or call in the match or whatever he said. Really cool stuff there at the end. And the wrestling world lost one of its biggest personalities ever. And to me, that was what was more important than being pissed about Hogan appearing. So on Monday, I was saying to myself, tomorrow we can all go back to hating Hogan, but for tonight, for Monday night, I'm choosing not to be pissed. And I thought overall it was a very well done and very touching tribute to Mean Gene Okerlund. So that'll pretty much wrap it up for Monday Night Raw. Let's move on to SmackDown Live now. Now, this show was great. This show opened up with Daniel Bryan cutting one of the most amazing heel promos I've ever fucking seen. This crazy bearded bastard is in the concession area in the arena, and he's just ripping the fans apart, mocking them for their constant unhealthy consumption, all the shit they put in their body and the alcohol that they poison themselves with day after day after day. He even assaulted a couple of fans, stole one guy's hot dog, threw a beer at another fan. Just an angry little man, and I fucking loved it. Then he starts going through the crowd. He leaves the concession area, gets down to ringside, and that's when he's attacked by R-Truth, and I believe the two of them had a run-in on one of the holiday SmackDowns, so they had a little bit of an issue there, and they would move on to their one-on-one match after this, and of course, Daniel Bryan did defeat R-Truth rather handily, but I loved Daniel Bryan's promo. He is a great little angry heel, is he not? And he, of course, is defending the WWE title at the Royal Rumble against AJ Styles again. So Daniel Bryan has got to face AJ again. I don't think Daniel Bryan is going to drop the belt. He's another guy that I expect to be champion going into WrestleMania. His opponent is up in the air at this point. You know, we don't know who's going to win the Royal Rumble, and we don't know who's going to win the Elimination Chamber. Is that how they do it? We got to figure this out, y'all. I don't even know. Please help me out because I'm clueless. Let me know in the comments below. Now that the pay-per-views are joint branded, is the Elimination Chamber going to be a joint branded match? Because they have one for the men and the women, correct? So if they're both joint branded, now you got the same situation as the Royal Rumble. So I'm not really sure how any of this shit is going to work. I don't know if a SmackDown guy is going to win the Rumble and challenge Daniel Bryan, and then a Raw guy will win the Chamber to challenge Brock, or vice versa. Maybe Seth wins the Rumble, challenges Brock, and then Daniel Bryan's opponent needs to be figured out between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. So I'm not really sure what the case is here. I was saying for the last few weeks and months that in my head, I kind of think a fun match would be a Bizarro World match. It would be heel Daniel Bryan versus babyface Miz for the title, and babyface Miz beats Daniel Bryan. You could have never imagined that scenario a year ago. You would think I'm on meth pitching an idea like that, but I thought it was a realistic idea. But now with the Miz being caught up with the Shane McMahon shit, which I'll talk about in a minute, which I don't understand where the hell that's going, but it might be leading to a WrestleMania match between the two, which if that's the case, the Miz ain't going to be challenging Daniel Bryan. He's going to need to face somebody, and he's already facing AJ Styles right now. He's probably not going to work with Samoa Joe because then it's a heel versus heel match, and that's probably not what WWE wants to do for WrestleMania. So what do you do with Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania? That's a question I pose to all of you. What does Daniel Bryan do, assuming he stays champion into WrestleMania, which I believe he will? Who's he going to defend the title against? And is he going to retain, or is he going to drop it? If they want to send a Raw guy over to SmackDown, you can have somebody like Finn Balor win the Royal Rumble and then jump and say, hey, I don't want any part of Brock Lesnar, and then jump over to SmackDown to challenge Daniel Bryan. There's so many different things they could do here, but I would like to hear what you guys think. What should Daniel Bryan do at WrestleMania? I thought it was going to be The Miz, but maybe it won't be. And speaking of The Miz, he is formulating this tag team with Shane McMahon. Shane did accept his request to be his tag team partner. They had a little backstage segment where they were discussing, ring attire and shit like that. And you can already see there's some little, it ain't going to work out. You can just tell that. But there is going to be a match. They're going to get a tag team title match at the Royal Rumble. They're going to be challenging The Bar. The Bar got a victory over the Usos, and The Miz, who I believe was at ringside, challenged the two of them after the match to a title match against him and Shane at the Royal Rumble, and they accepted, and Miz ate a brogue kick for his efforts. So that match is now penciled in for the Royal Rumble. I don't know. Part of me thinks they're going to give the tag team titles to Miz and Shane. I think they probably would do that, and then maybe they drop them before WrestleMania, leading to a one-on-one match at WrestleMania. That's just where I'm guessing this is going to go. Please let me know if you have better ideas. But maybe WWE has decided they don't want The Miz to win the title just yet, but they still want to give him a big-time match at WrestleMania. And the Shane McMahon match is usually a big match. You know, he's worked with some pretty major stars, you know, with AJ Styles and Undertaker and guys like that. And who the hell did he work with last year? And maybe that's what they're doing with The Miz. I really have no idea. But I think Shane and Miz might defeat The Bar at the Royal Rumble. Now, The Bar did defeat the Usos, like I said, and they defeated them with help from Mandy Rose. WWE seems like they're doing something with Mandy Rose. A lot of people like her, and I do too. I think she's really good on the mic. I don't think that she's wonderful in the ring, but she doesn't really need to be. I'm not really a fan, though, of those like blonde bombshell type of wrestlers. And on paper, you know, Mandy Rose, she just looks like this hot, blonde bikini model with a porn star name, kind of like Alexa Bliss. But Alexa Bliss was the same way. She surprised me with her charisma and how funny she could be and how witty and charismatic she could be and how comfortable she seemed to be on the stick. And I see a lot of that with Mandy Rose as well. I just really like her voice. I think she has a good voice. She delivers her lines well, and she might be a pretty good character for WWE. A girl like Mandy Rose, you need to focus on her strengths, which is going to be her mic work. Where someone like Charlotte or Asuka or people like that, you might focus more on in-ring work. Mandy Rose, I think, has a personality, a good one for wrestling, even though, you know, she's another one. We've had the Trish Stratuses and the Tori Wilsons and these type of women come in, but I'm liking what I'm seeing from Mandy Rose right now, and I can't believe I'm actually saying somebody being too good looking is actually a negative when it comes to wrestling. I don't know why I think that, but usually when I see a woman like Mandy Rose, you know, I got to be honest, sometimes I take them for granted, and sometimes I don't realize the talent they have until they're given opportunities to perform, and I'm liking what I'm seeing from Mandy Rose. So I think she's going to be another type of character that's going to potentially maybe be a GM one day or have a talk show like Alexa Bliss. You know, that might be something they want to start. You know, maybe have a female talk show on SmackDown and a female talk show on Raw, and then eventually they figure out a way to get the two of them together at a pay-per-view or something like that. Maybe SummerSlam, you have a Mandy Rose and Alexa Bliss joint talk show segment or some shit like that. I don't know. But I'm in no rush with Mandy Rose. I'm fine with them taking their time. They kind of are right now. She's, you know, feuding with Naomi because Mandy Rose has been, I guess, flirting with Jimmy. She came out there in a towel, by the way, in that tag team match and got on the mic and said, Jimmy, distracting Jimmy Uso, and said, you know, I think I left my gold bottom and my gold top in your hotel room or whatever. And then later on backstage, that's when she's attacked by Naomi. So the two of them are going to have an issue for right now, but so far so good on Mandy Rose. I'm liking her. And of course, finally, the big main event that was advertised for SmackDown this week. It was going to be a triple threat number one contenders match between Becky Lynch, Charlotte, and Carmella. The winner will face Asuka at the Royal Rumble. Now, this is much like the men's situation, has got so many different possibilities. And I've been saying for weeks that I think since Becky lost out on her match with Ronda Rousey at Survivor Series, that she should get the match with Ronda at WrestleMania. You know, some people still think it's going to be Charlotte and Ronda. That was all set up at Survivor Series. Charlotte and Ronda still have an issue and they still have an axe to grind with each other, but so does Becky and Ronda. All of them are talking shit to each other on Twitter. You know, we don't know where this is going to go. And I was, at least on SmackDown, rooting against Becky Lynch. I did not want her to win. I wanted to see Becky Lynch go into the Royal Rumble, win the Royal Rumble so she could jump to Raw and challenge Ronda Rousey. That's what I thought they were going to do. But that's not going to happen now because Becky is getting a title shot against Asuka. So the fact that Becky Lynch won on SmackDown and will now face Asuka at the Royal Rumble, I don't think that completely eliminates the possibility of Becky versus Ronda at WrestleMania. I still think you can get there. There's lots of different ways you can get there. You might even see a trade. You know, maybe Becky comes out and interferes in Ronda's match, or Ronda comes out and interferes in Becky's match, costing her the match with Asuka. And then Becky demands to be traded over to Raw so she can challenge Ronda for the title. There's a whole bunch of different things that they can do. But in my head, I thought the best option and the easiest path for Becky and Ronda at WrestleMania would be for Becky to win the Royal Rumble. But that's out now. She beat both Carmella and Charlotte in that triple threat match and had the stare down with Asuka at the end. And that match is on for the Royal Rumble. Now, with Asuka, I'm the same way. I'm wanting most of our champions right now to be champion at WrestleMania. And I really want to see Asuka defend her title and retain her title at WrestleMania. Because think about this. When it comes to WrestleMania, not everybody is going to drop their belts. Some people are going to have to retain. And if Ronda drops it, I really want to see Asuka retain it. Much like Brock. If Brock drops it, I wouldn't mind seeing Daniel Bryan retain either. So I think regardless of what Asuka does and who she works with at WrestleMania, I want Asuka to, number one, be champion going in, and I also want her to win whatever match she has. And the match that I would like to see Asuka have at WrestleMania is against Charlotte. I would love to see Asuka versus Charlotte too, and Asuka get that win back from last year. A win that I expected her to get back a lot earlier than this. I thought this was going to happen back at SummerSlam. But if they do it, Part 2 at WrestleMania and Asuka wins, I will be a happy camper. And that means Becky can somehow try to face Ronda Rousey still. But what if none of that happens? There's been a lot of talk about a three-way at WrestleMania, and how would you even do that? How would you do a three-way? A lot of people were mentioning like a Royal Rumble 1994, WrestleMania 10 type of situation if Charlotte and Becky, eliminated themselves from the Rumble. That's a moot point now because Becky isn't going to be in the Rumble likely, but Charlotte will be. So does Charlotte wind up winning the Rumble? If you're going to do some sort of a triple threat match between Becky and Charlotte and Ronda, how the fuck do you get there? How do you make that happen? So there's just a lot to consider here. You got the Royal Rumble to think about. You got Becky's match with Asuka to think about. You got the Elimination Chamber to think about. You got Ronda and Charlotte and Becky all talking shit to each other on Twitter. Ronda interfered at TLC. Is somebody going to interfere on Ronda at the Royal Rumble? I've been saying all along that Ronda is not going to drop the belt, but maybe it's possible. Maybe Charlotte or Becky get some revenge on Ronda for what she did to them at TLC. And maybe Charlotte does interrupt the match and cost Ronda the title. Sasha Banks is now women's champion. Maybe she finally implodes with Bayley, and you get Bayley and Sasha for the title at WrestleMania. I wouldn't necessarily hate that, but I think the bigger money and the bigger marquee match is for Ronda to remain champion. So it seems like the storyline would point to Ronda losing the title at the Royal Rumble due to Becky or Charlotte interfering, but I think you got to keep the belt on Ronda going into WrestleMania. So again, like the Daniel Bryan situation, let me know in the comments below. What would you do? How would you book this? I want Asuka to survive Becky Lynch somehow at the Royal Rumble. So does Ronda come out again and cost Becky Lynch a second time? Holy shit, is that going to piss the man off? She's going to be hell-bent and demanding she gets moved over to Raw. There's also the possibility, which I think would be fun, of WWE just trying to throw the fans off the trail a little bit. Maybe they don't want Becky in the Rumble because they don't want the predictable finish of her winning and then beating Ronda at WrestleMania. So maybe they have Becky have the match with Asuka. She comes up short, loses or something or whatever. She just basically doesn't win the title against Asuka. And then backstage later on during the Women's Rumble, she attacks somebody and takes their place, or she's a surprise entrant somehow, or she convinces Vince or Stephanie or Shane or somebody to let her into the match after she gets wrongfully screwed against Asuka. Although since Asuka is a babyface, I don't know if Asuka is going to screw Becky, or if just something happens to Becky to where she somehow finds her way into the Royal Rumble, that's also possible. So I'm hoping for some twists or turns here along the way. But all I know for a fact is that I think WrestleMania, at least for the women, is going to be really fun. And there's still the possibility of the women main eventing. I don't know if I see it happening. Prior to Becky Lynch getting her face bashed in and she was supposed to work with Rousey at Survivor Series, I thought 100% it was going to be Charlotte versus Ronda at WrestleMania. That's your money match. If you're ever going to have women main event to WrestleMania, you are not going to get a better opportunity than that. That's the match to have. But after the punch to the face, it threw everything off. And now it seems like Becky She's the hottest woman in the company. She's over like Rover. Put her in that ring. Unfinished business with Ronda. She has the big moment. She's the one to finally defeat Ronda and end that long streak. Because don't forget, Charlotte already ended a streak. She ended it last year with Asuka. Maybe it's Becky's turn to end the streak, which really is kind of the same situation. It goes to show how the fans do not think with their heads. They only think with their hearts and who they like and they hate. They swore up and down that Asuka, after being undefeated for over a year, however long it was, after that long run, she should beat Charlotte and just keep the streak going forever and ever and ever and ever. Where here we're in the same situation with Ronda. You know, Ronda has also got a long streak going. But I guarantee you, if Becky faces Ronda at WrestleMania and beats Ronda, nobody's going to be saying that Ronda was ruined. Nobody's going to be saying that the mystique is gone and Ronda is buried. You know why? Because they like Becky Lynch. It's the same exact situation. It's the same one. Super over badass woman with a year-plus long winning streak is going to lose, and in one case the fans are pissed, and in the one case the fans are happy, because it all depends on who you like and who you don't like. I've been saying it forever. The fans try to pretend that they have the best interest of the business at heart. Oh, it wasn't the right decision to do that. It should have gone to a young talent or this or that. Bullshit. You're a mark just like me. And just like all of us. So stop pretending that you know what's up. You don't. Why don't we now run through the Royal Rumble card? Here's how it stands as of right now. We've got the Fatal 4-Way Cruiserweight title match. We've got the Bar taking on Shane and Miz for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. We have Ronda Rousey defending the Raw Women's title against Sasha Banks. We have Asuka defending the SmackDown title against Becky Lynch. We've got Daniel Bryan also defending the SmackDown title against AJ Styles. Brock Lesnar defending the Universal title against Braun Strowman. The Women's Royal Rumble match and the Men's Royal Rumble match. That's 8 matches. That's a lot of talent. That's about 80 people involved in these 8 matches combined. So like I said, there's not too much more room to add another match. Maybe 1 or 2 we'll get, but all the other big stars you would think are going to be involved in the Royal Rumble. So aside from a Raw tag team title match, which we will likely get, we're probably not going to get too much more. So anyway, I am almost out of breath. I know this podcast has gone well over an hour. It was a long one, and there's still probably a lot that I left out, but I got to wrap this up. I want to get this up to YouTube no later than Thursday, maybe even Wednesday if we're lucky. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. Thank you again very much for listening. Thank you again for another great year of support in 2018, and I am really excited for what's to come in 2019. You guys take care, and I'll catch you in just a couple of days. Until then, peace.
This has been a Good Mic Work Commentaries production. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/GoodMicWork. Follow Greg Morgan on Twitter @GoodMicWork and visit GoodMicWorkCommentaries.com for all the latest podcast and video content.